Modern medication did not work for me. Modern medication did not work for me. Modern medication did not work for me. Modern medication.
The Mercy TV.
The 22nd of January.
This is the Mercy Wednesday night meeting. Yay! Welcome everybody. Twee, that water stinks. Get some better water. Okay, so let's go find some news. Hold on a sec, folks. We're going online. We're going to go visit Willamette Valley Normal. That's w-v-normal, NORML.org.
We have picture and audio.
Okay. So, welcome everybody out there who's just tuning in, if you are just tuning in, and welcome in any case to the Mercy Weekly Meeting, held every Wednesday at 1745 Capitol Street Northeast, and it begins at 7 p.m. We go for about an hour or so, matching up people, patients to growers, growers to patients. Folks needing excess medicine, folks who are trying to get with the program, folks who are looking for a grower or trying to get to grow themselves, or trying to make that decision and all. Excuse me. Also, best methods on medicating, where to find resources for all of this, changes and issues. Pretty much all the things that's happening for the cannabis community, both here in Salem, across America, and around the world. If we get some time, we can dip into our mailbag and show you a sample of the folks from around the world. We have an email just recently from the Philippines, and of course we've had in the recent past folks from the Caribbean, someone who's in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Was a recent one there. Also folks in the Mediterranean. We've recently set up a webpage on Cyprus. Of course all the countries in Europe. And we have a call. Oh. Okay. All this stuff and more can be found, of course, on our website at mercycenters.org. Study. Student drug testing programs are ineffective. This out of Haifa, Israel. The imposition of student drug testing programs is not effective in limiting students' consumption of controlled substances, according to survey data published in the January edition of the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs. Investigators from Israel and the United States assessed whether students' awareness of drug testing programs in their school was associated with a reduction in the frequency of use of their alcohol, cigarettes, or cannabis. Authors reported that, consistent with previous research, results of the current study show that perceived SDT, or student drug testing, is not associated with a reduction in initiation or escalation of substance use in the general student population. They concluded the current research reinforces previous conclusions that SDT is a relatively ineffective drug prevention policy. An estimated 28% of U.S. high school students are subject to drug testing programs. Previous assessment of student drug testing programs, including random testing programs, report that the imposition of such programs are not associated with reduced levels of student drug use, and in some instances are associated with increased use of illicit drugs other than marijuana. What happens there, folks, is folks will go to drugs that pass out of your system relatively quickly, unlike marijuana, which stays in your system for an exterior period of time, attaching itself to fat molecules and silly things like that. So if you're on crack or something, or meth or something like that, it flushes out of your system much faster. There's much easier ways to get around it. So where drug testing programs are instituted, folks, students and otherwise, gravitate to those things. And so it's actually counterproductive for reducing, for the harm reduction. Actual, real harm reduction, The supposed goal of the drug testing, of the drug war. In New Hampshire, House members vote in favor of measure to legalize marijuana.
Is that medical marijuana or general public marijuana?
Well, New Hampshire already has a medical marijuana program. So New Hampshire would be joining Washington State and Colorado as legalized states here. Members of the New Hampshire House of Representatives on Wednesday, January 16th, 2014, voted 170 to 162 in favor of legalization, House Bill 492, or of legislation, House Bill 4092, to legalize the personal use and or cultivation of marijuana by persons 21 years of age or older, and to establish regulations for the retail production and sale of cannabis. The vote marks the first time that a state legislative chamber has ever voted in favor of legislation to legalize and regulate marijuana for adults. Said Normal Communications Director Eric Altieri, 58% of Americans support ending prohibition of marijuana, and the New Hampshire House lawmakers' actions signal that politicians are beginning to acknowledge the will of their constituents. House lawmakers last year rejected a similar measure by a vote of 239 to 112. So wow, that's a significant turnaround. Members of the House Ways and Means Committee will now further debate the measure's potential financial implications. The full House is anticipated to vote once again on the measure in the coming months. And I believe it will also have to pass the Senate. Democrat Governor Maggie Hassan has stated publicly that she opposes the measure and that she would veto it if it reaches her desk. Well, boo, Governor Maggie Hassan. I hope that the citizens of New Hampshire rise up and vote her out before that happens. She's obviously not, doesn't give her a rat's behind about the will of the people. I mean, look here. Strong majority of Washington, D.C. residents want legal marijuana. Residents of the District of Columbia favor legalizing marijuana for adults, according to the findings from a Washington Post poll released Wednesday. 63% of respondents said that they favor legalizing the possession of small amounts of marijuana for personal use. 34% of respondents said that they oppose legalization. However, among those respondents, nearly half, or 60%, acknowledged support for reducing the criminal penalties for marijuana offenses. Members of the D.C. Committee on Public Safety this week voted unanimously in favor of legislation amending local marijuana possession penalties from a criminal misdemeanor punishable by up to 6 months incarceration and a maximum fine of $1,000 to a civil infraction punishable by a $25 fine for possession and a $100 fine for public consumption. The full City Council is expected to act on the measure shortly. Any legislation approved by the D.C. City Council may be overridden by an act of Congress. A 2012 analysis published by the American Civil Liberties Union of Maryland reported that D.C. possesses the highest percentage of marijuana possession arrests per capita in the nation. And yes, actually, D.C. has a medical marijuana law, and point of fact, has dispensaries. So there's places you can go get this stuff in our nation's capital. The same nation's capital that says you can't have it there, folks, in Illinois and elsewhere. Yeah.
Okay, how will they get supplied with their medical cannabis?
Who's that?
The dispensaries.
In D.C.?
Yeah.
I believe there's places designated to grow it.
Is that personal or?
No, they don't have personal
fast
grows
garden?
in D.C. So they have these facilities that grow it, and places where it's dispensed. There's probably a licensing thing. Well, fine, if you're going to be nitpicky about it. Let's see, Washington, D.C. Okay. On February 14, 2012, the D.C. Department of Health's Regulation and Licensing Administration posted revised timeline for dispensary application process. The first dispensary, Capital City Care, was licensed in April 2013. It doesn't have any more information other than that. Folks, go to our website, mercycenters.org, go to our DC, Washington, D.C. page, and follow the links and find out. And what you find out, let us know. Hey. Let's see. Non-psychoactive cannabinoid protects against alcohol-induced liver damage. This report out of Guangdong, China. The administration of the non-psychotropic cannabinoid cannabidiol, or CBD, protects the liver from damage caused by alcohol consumption. According to preclinical data, hold on a sec, folks. Hello. Hello? Yeah, we help patients. What's your issue? Do we need help? Oh, yes, we need lots of help. How do you get a hold of us? Oh, we are at 1745 Capitol Street Northeast. We are open Monday through Friday, noon to 6. And we also have a meeting every Wednesday at the same address at 7 p.m. And folks can also give us a call at 503-363-4588. And of course, there's always the website, mercycenters.org. From there, you can send us an email, and we can communicate that way. Yeah, we have a doctor that comes into town once a month. And so if you want to utilize the doctor, or you just thinking about getting your records in general, you need to bring your records down to us here at the Mercy Center. We'll vet them, and if they're good, we'll pass them on to our doc, who will then call and make an appointment with you. If they're not going to pass, then we'll let you know what you need to do to get them up to speed there. So I guess the short answer is bring your records to us at Mercy Center. Okay, well, thanks for calling, and I wish what you were saying was going out on our TV medium there would make a lot more sense there, but appreciate the efforts. Bye now. Okay, well,
patient or old patient?
It sounded somebody like they were getting information, about how to get their card, so they probably didn't have it yet. And so, the administration of the non-psychotropic CBD protects the liver from damage caused by alcohol consumption, according to preclinical data published online in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine. Investigators from China and the U.S. assessed whether cannabidiol administration can protect against liver-induced steatosis, or excessive fat buildup in the liver. They reported cannabidiol protects mouse liver from acute alcohol-induced steatosis through multiple mechanisms, including the attenuation of alcohol-mediated oxidative stress and increasing autophagy, or degradation of dysfunctional cells. Separate investigations of CBD, primarily in animal models, have documented the cannabinoid to possess a variety of therapeutic qualities, including anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, anti-epileptic, anti-cancer, antipsychotic, and bone-stimulating properties. Human trials assessing the administration of CBD in healthy subjects report the compound to be safe and well tolerated. So hey, there's good news. Most Americans believe marijuana should be made legal. I think that's the 58% poll that was talked about recently. 55% of Americans favor making cannabis legal for adults. This, a CNN ORC International survey released. That percentage is the highest ever reported by this particular survey, which has been tracking public opinion on the issue since 1973, and marks a 12-point jump in support since the last time pollsters posed the question in 2012. Respondent support for legalizing marijuana was influenced by age, gender, political affiliation, and place of residence. A strong majority of self-described Democrats, 62%, and independents, 59%, favored legalization, but not Republicans, at 36%. Male respondents were 51% in favor of legalization, as compared to women at 49%. While support rates for people in the Northeast were at 60%, the West 58%, and the Midwest 57%, were similar. Support among those in the South was lower at 48%. Still, In response to a separate question, only 35% of those polled responded that consuming cannabis was morally wrong, down from 70% in 1987, the last time pollers posed that particular question. Nearly three-quarters of respondents also said that they believed that alcohol posed greater dangers to the consumer than did cannabis. The CNN ORC poll surveyed 1,010 Americans and possesses a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. This survey's findings are similar to those of a fall 2013 Gallup poll that reported nationwide support for legalizing marijuana at 58%, the highest level of support ever recorded in a national scientific poll. So keep up the good work, folks. Freedom's coming. But only if everybody registers, votes, and gets everybody they know to do so also. Because, heck, New York governor pledges to revive state's dormant medical cannabis program. Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo intends to revive a dormant state law that allows for cannabis to be dispensed by physicians in hospital settings. The governor formally announced his intentions during his State of the State address on Wednesday, January 9, 2014, acknowledging research suggests that marijuana can help manage the pain of cancer and other serious illnesses. Under his announced plan, physicians at up to 20 hospitals throughout the state will be permitted to authorize qualifying patients to use cannabis therapeutically. Governor Cuomo said that he intends to implement the program via executive action rather than by an act of the legislature. In previous years, proposals to legalize the broader therapeutic use of the plan have passed the state assembly but have stalled in the Senate. Under a 1980 state law known as the Antonio G. Olivieri Controlled Substance Therapeutic Research Program, physicians possess the ability to prescribe cannabis to patients as an investigational new drug. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, dozens of states enacted similar laws which relied on federal officials to provide government-grown cannabis to state health departments. However, only a limited number of states, California, Georgia, Michigan, New York, New Mexico, Tennessee, and Vermont, ever successfully implemented these specific types of federally coordinated therapeutic research programs, all of which were discontinued by the mid-1980s. Excuse me. Ooh. More recent state efforts to resurrect their similar programs have not been successful. In 2013, Maryland lawmakers enacted legislation to allow the substance to be dispensed at teaching hospitals. To date, however, no hospitals have volunteered to participate in the program, and now two of the state's largest institutions, Johns Hopkins Hospital and the University of Maryland Medical System, have publicly said that they will not have any involvement in the proposed system. According to a 2012 statewide Siena College Research Institute poll, 82% of New Yorkers support the legalization of cannabis when authorized by a physician. Until this year, Governor Cuomo had previously been on record opposing the therapeutic use of marijuana, regardless of the circumstances. So he's seeing the writing on the wall where public support is concerned. For those who are seeking to use cannabis under their physician's care for therapeutic purposes, a study out of Knoxville, Tennessee, alcohol, not cannabis, associated with intimate partner violence. Men's consumption of alcohol, but not cannabis, is associated with intimate partner violence, according to survey data published this month in the journal Addictive Behaviors. Investigators at the University of Tennessee and Florida State assessed whether alcohol intoxication and/or cannabis use by college-age men in a current dating relationship was associated with increased odds of physical, sexual, or psychological aggression toward their partner over a 90-day period. They reported on any alcohol use days, heavy alcohol use days, that is 5 or more standard drinks, and as the number of drinks increased on a given day, the odds of physical and sexual aggression perpetration increased. The odds of psychological aggression increased on heavy alcohol use days only. By contrast, authors determined that marijuana use days did not increase the odds of any type of aggression. Authors concluded, our findings were consistent with theoretical models of alcohol use and intimate partner violence and previous research in that the odds of psychological, physical, and sexual aggression were all increased subsequent to alcohol use, but not cannabis, aka marijuana. So much another blow to the reefer madness myth. Bummer, dudes. Colorado, retail marijuana sales now underway. Of course, a lot of folks saw those news reports of people lined up around the block to get into the Colorado cannabis stores. As dozens of state and locally licensed cannabis retailers opened for business on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2014, engaging in thousands of retail transactions with customers age 21 and older. The sales are in compliance with newly enacted state regulations allowing for the commercial production and retail sale of cannabis to adults. In past weeks, state regulators have approved over 300 businesses to engage in marijuana commerce. Several dozens of those enterprises opened their doors on Wednesday, while dozens more are expected to begin operating within the coming weeks. Normal Executive Director Alan St. Pierre called the day's events historic. He said, for the first time in modern history, a state is regulating cannabis as a legal commodity in a manner similar to alcohol. Colorado is the first, but it certainly won't be the last, state to treat cannabis as a legal adult retail product rather than a prohibited criminalized substance. The genie is out of the bottle and it isn't going back in. Under Colorado law, adults may legally possess and grow limited quantities of cannabis. Licensed commercial retailers may also cultivate, produce, and sell cannabis and cannabis-infused products. Local municipalities, in addition to state regulators, must sign off on the operation of marijuana businesses. 55% of state voters in November 2012 approved ballot language authorizing adults to possess, grow, and commercially sell cannabis. In August, Deputy Attorney General James Cole issued a 3-page memorandum affirming that the Justice Department would not interfere in the state's efforts to regulate cannabis sales, provided that those regulations...
I'm getting the signal you should answer the phone.
Hello, Mercy TV. Hi, can we help you?
Meeting.
The Colorado situation? In Colorado or in general? Well, the caller is asking if legalization is going to drive up the price of marijuana for the dispensaries, for the patients. And I would say not. I would say that if anything, it would bring the price down. But in Colorado, the patients have their grower there. The dispensary system's kind of tenuous, like Washington State, and California, and pretty much all the others. There's no real dispensary process for them, so. Yeah, that's they've seen some really high prices for some really high grade cannabis there. But I think the patients will still be getting their medicine in the format and everything that they're looking for.
Keep your hand away from your face.
Was that last question? I'm sorry. Better quality medicine for the patients. I would think so. I mean, these again, the patient community has still got their same varieties that they had there. I mean, they didn't go away. It would only those patients as citizens can go to these retail places and get cannabis as medicine when their dispensary or their local grower is out, for example. So there's a resource for them. But I expect to see the prices come down as more folks get involved with it, and certainly the medical side should see a decrease in expense. So hopefully, yeah, that would be the case. Yeah, the medicine that should be available for the patient should be quality, but that's why it's important that the right for the individuals to grow be maintained. Okay, well, thanks for calling. Right. Okay.
You forgot to tell them to give us a call on Friday.
That's right. You can also see us on Channel 23, Fridays, 7 p.m. Mercy TV Live. Hopefully all the planets will be aligned and we'll be able to accept calls there live instead of recording them and playing them later. But in any case, tune in, Channel 23, 7 p.m. Catch the number there. Call on in with your medical cannabis related question, comment, curse, or kudo. Okay, as to the Colorado situation. In August, Deputy Attorney General James Cole issued a 3-page memorandum affirming that the Justice Department would not interfere in the state's efforts to legalize cannabis sales, provided that those regulations limit the substance's availability to children and do not allow for the diversion of cannabis to states that have not legalized its use. In Colorado, residents of Colorado may purchase up to 1 ounce of cannabis. Out-of-state customers are limited to purchasing no more than 1/4 ounce of cannabis per retail transaction. Retail cannabis sales are subject to state sales tax in addition to cannabis-specific 25% sin tax. Transactions involving the purchase of medical cannabis by state-qualified patients are not subject to similar taxation. So, referring to that gentleman who called earlier, they definitely won't see an increase in the patient's medicine due to their taxation. Thank heavens. Public consumption of cannabis is subject to a civil fine. Further details on existing Colorado laws and regulations specific to cannabis industry practices are available online from the Colorado Department of Revenue. Visit our website, mercycenters.org. We'll have the link there for you. Similar regulations are governing state licensed cannabis production and sales are anticipated to begin in Washington State in the coming months. Also for folks out there, in Oregon, we're expected to see a dispensary law come into effect effective March 1st.
So, last Friday, we went to a meeting at the Capitol, and that was dealing with the dispensary bill, or what?
No, the meeting last Friday at the Capitol was to witness a presentation by prohibitionist Kevin Sabet of smart approaches for marijuana, or SAM, which is a nonprofit group. It gets grant money, so it's really going on tax dollars a great deal. You can consider it a lobby or a front for the professional rehab, for the drug war in general. The gist of Mr. Sabet's speech was that we should be maintaining the status quo. He advised against making any changes, and generally, wanted to keep things the way they were. Offered a variety of reasons, a number of statistics. Salient points were that there's an increase in children who are overdosing, getting their hands on medibles, cannabis edibles, and that the emergency room visits was skyrocketing, and the use of by the kids, particularly in states that have legalized it for medical, was off the scale, and various other things that are actually the opposite was true in a number of the things that was saying. So that was what that little gathering was about, and we'll have that up on the YouTube on our Mercy TV channel network here real soon. Yeah.
Did the legislation committee that heard this gentleman, their comments to him, did they make sense?
Senator Prozansky asked about the funding of the group to get a basis for that, and also the senator was the one making clear of what he was proposing, the actions that they take or don't take, because there's a move on in the Oregon State Legislature to put forth a bill to legalize cannabis under their terms that everybody can agree on, if it's going to happen. And it would be better, they feel, to have the legislature do something than let the will of the people do it and possibly get some things they didn't like or don't want to do. When pressed, Mr. Sabet told Senator Prozansky that the best thing was to pause and to not not do anything, to maintain the status quo.
How about that gentleman from the internet or whatever, 420.net or?
That was 420radio.org. Russ Belville, cannabis law reform activist, was there pretty much debunking each and every point by the prohibitionist Sabet, case by case. Fortunately, he also printed out the documentation and made sure it got to all the legislators. Study: cannabis often consumed as a substitute for other licit and illicit substances. Victoria, Canada. A majority of medical cannabis consumers report using the plant as a substitute for prescription drugs, alcohol, or some other illicit substance, according to a survey data published in the October issue of Addiction Research and Theory. An international team of investigators from Canada and the United States assessed the subjective impact of marijuana on the use of licit and illicit substances via self-report in a cohort of 404 medical cannabis patients recruited from 4 dispensaries in British Columbia, Canada. Researchers reported that subjects frequently substituted cannabis for other substances, including conventional pharmaceuticals, finding over 41% state that they used cannabis as a substitute for alcohol, 36.1% used cannabis as a substitute for illicit substances, and 67.8% used cannabis as a substitute for prescription drugs. The three main reasons cited for cannabis-related substitution are less withdrawal, 67%, fewer side effects at 60%, and better symptom management, suggesting that many patients may have already identified cannabis as an effective and potentially safer adjunct or alternative to their prescription drug regimen. Overall, 75% of respondents said that they substitute cannabis for at least one other substance. Men are more likely than women to report substituting cannabis for alcohol or illicit drugs. The authors concluded, while some studies have found that a small percentage of the general population that uses cannabis may develop a dependence on this substance, a growing body of research on cannabis-related substitution suggests that for many patients, cannabis is not only an effective medicine but also a potential exit drug to problematic substance use. Given the credible biological, social, and psychological mechanisms behind these results, and the associated potential to decrease personal suffering and the personal and social costs associated with addiction, further research appears to be justified on both economic and ethical grounds. Clinical trials with those who have had poor outcomes with conventional psychological or pharmacological addiction therapies could be a good starting point to further our understanding of cannabis-based substitution effect. Well, let's hope that goes somewhere, huh? Study: cannabis use unlikely to cause schizophrenia. Family genetics rather than adolescent cannabis use increases the risk of schizophrenia, according to a case-control study published online in the journal Schizophrenia Research. Investigators from the Harvard Medical School compared the family histories of 108 schizophrenia patients and 171 individuals without schizophrenia to assess whether youth cannabis consumption was an independent factor in developing the disorder. Researchers reported that a family history of schizophrenia increased the risk of developing the disease, regardless of whether or not subjects consumed cannabis as adolescents. There was an increased morbid risk for schizophrenia in relatives of the cannabis using and non-using patient samples compared with their respective non-psychotic control samples, authors reported. There was no significant difference in morbid risk for schizophrenia between relatives of the patients who use or do not use cannabis. They concluded the results of the study, both when analyzed using morbid risk and family frequency calculations, suggest that having an increased familial risk for schizophrenia is the underlying basis for schizophrenia in these samples and not the cannabis use. While cannabis may have an effect on the age of onset of schizophrenia, it is unlikely to be the cause of the illness. Previous studies have reported that rates of schizophrenia have remained steady for decades despite changing patterns in cannabis use among the population. Commenting on the study's findings, Normal Deputy Director Paul Armentano said, "Concerns regarding cannabis's potential impact on psychiatric illnesses arguably warrant further study. However, such concerns, even if confirmed, are not persuasive justifications for continuing cannabis criminalization. Just the opposite is true. There are numerous adverse health consequences associated with alcohol, tobacco, and prescription drugs, all of which are far more dangerous and costlier to society than cannabis. It is precisely because of these consequences that these products are legally regulated and their consumption is restricted to specified consumers and settings. The same principle ought to apply to cannabis. Hear, hear. And if you agree, be sure to register, vote, and make sure everybody you know does so also, to make that the law of the land. Also, study cannabidiol holds promise for treating psychosis. From Utrecht, the Netherlands. Cannabidiol, or CBD, a non-psychotropic cannabinoid, alleviates psychotic symptoms and may hold promise as an alternative for antipsychotic treatment, according to a review published in the November issue of the journal Neuropsychopharmacology. Investigators in the Netherlands and the United Kingdom reviewed preclinical and clinical data in the use of CBD as an antipsychotic agent. Authors reported that both animal and human studies document the ability of CBD to mitigate symptoms of psychosis. Specifically, CBD administration is associated with improved symptoms in clinical evaluations of patients with schizophrenia, Parkinson's disease, and ketamine-induced dissociative and psychotic symptoms. Investigators also highlighted a 2012 double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial assessing CBD versus the prescription antipsychotic drug amisulpride in 42 subjects with schizophrenia and acute paranoia. Authors reported that both CBD and the prescription drug were associated with equally significant clinical improvement in this patient population, but that the cannabidiol possessed significantly less side effects. Once again, they concluded evidence from several study domains suggests that CBD has some potential as an antipsychotic treatment. Given the high tolerability and superior cost effectiveness, CBD may prove to be an attractive alternative to current antipsychotic treatment. Previous human trials assessing the administration of CBD in healthy human subjects report that the cannabinoid is safe and well tolerated. Separate investigations of CBD, primarily in animal models, have documented the cannabinoid to possess a variety of therapeutic qualities, including anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, anti-epileptic, anti-cancer, and bone-stimulating properties. Recently, the FDA approved the experimental use of CBD extracts for the treatment of a rare form of intractable pediatric epilepsy known as Dravet syndrome. Preliminary clinical trials assessing the safety and tolerability of the compound in children are scheduled to begin immediately. Eminently. Eminent. Oh. So, any more questions, comments from the peanut gallery? Uruguay lawmakers authorize marijuana production and sales. Members of the Uruguay Senate approved legislation this week, December 12, 2013, authorizing the licensed production and retail sale of all cannabis to all citizens age 18 and older. Hey, Mercy Wednesday meeting. How can you help us down here at the Mercy Center? Oh gosh, well, you could stop on by Monday through Friday and volunteer. Help us work the front desk there to help folks to get their cards, to find medicine in the short term and get to a grower or get growing themselves in the long term. Also, we have our meeting on Wednesday nights. Folks can come and help with us with that. If you have any excess, bring it down, and we'll make sure it gets to the right places. And
Dead presidents, if you have any extra of them.
some plants, yes. If you have any, those folks when you're allowed to have 18 immature babies until they get over 12 inches. And so if you've got plants that are getting over 12 inches, you got to get rid of them. Certainly bring them on down to the Mercy Center. If you need some plants, come on down, check us out. We have frequently have folks bringing in clones. They're either ones that they have excess, or they'll make a batch up just for us. So if you're out there, you've got a garden going, make a batch of clones and bring them to us here. That'll help. Wednesday night's a good night to do that. That's when most folks can make it, and the time we set it up to. There's always somebody with some excess medicine. So if you're in need of excess medicine, definitely come on down. Wednesday nights, again, is a good time. Here at 1745 Capitol Street, 7 p.m. And if there's not any immediately available, we'll certainly network you to the best options on coming up with some medicine. Okay, and good luck in your efforts there. Thanks. Oh, and folks, also, we good old cash donations of funds to help us out there. Office supplies. Buy us a bag of coffee. Heck, that helps us to get through the day. Keeping enough juice in the motor there.
Unsalted butter.
Unsalted butter, yeah. Uruguay.
You said that earlier.
Under pending law, residents of the South American nation will be able to legally purchase up to 40 grams of cannabis per month. Sales to non-residents will not be permitted. For all those who are planning your vacation there, price controls will set the cost of cannabis available at state stores to $1 per gram. The forthcoming law would also allow households to grow up to 6 cannabis plants each. It also allows for the establishment of cooperatives, which will be able to grow as many as 99 plants. The possession of personal use of cannabis in Uruguay is not presently subject to criminal penalties. However, marijuana cultivation and sale are classified as criminal offenses.
That'll be changing soon.
So go Uruguay, and may we follow their examples soon. Teens' alcohol and tobacco use falls to historic lows, annual survey finds. California, majority of adults back marijuana legalization in 2013 field poll. From Linkoping, Sweden, a study, prevalence of illicit drugs in fatal crashes is low compared to alcohol. So cannabis is not a primary cause of fatal crashes. And out of Bristol in the United Kingdom, think tank issues guidebook on how to regulate cannabis. So hopefully our U.S. representatives, officials will find themselves with a copy of that and take it to heart and quit fighting us on the issue. Several cities have been holding meetings here to discuss banning the upcoming dispensaries that are going to be coming online in theory, March 1st. So there's a little bit of the pushback, and we shall see. What needs to happen is, folks, if your city council is proposing a ban, what you need to do is contact your city council, find out who's putting forth the ban and who's voting for it, and de-elect, defund, and otherwise disempower these prohibitionists. It's the only way to take our state and indeed our country back, is to use that cannabis law reform, the marijuana prohibition litmus test. So start using it today, and prepare yourselves for the 2014, 2015, and 2016 election cycles, where we'll have a chance to replace some of these officials. And we should be looking at from like dog catcher on up. I mean, all the officials, because today's dog catcher is tomorrow's city council person, proposing and voting against medical cannabis dispensaries here in Oregon. So please help us out in that way before it becomes an issue here. Well, it's about all the time we have for stuff here. We've got a few more minutes left. Check in again with our peanut gallery and see if there's any other question, comments, or
Just give us a call on Friday night where we have a live phone-in show.
yeah. So that's all the time we have for now. We'll see you again on channel 23 on Friday at 7 p.m. There you'll have a chance to call in and go live. It's just right out there in front of everybody. Oh, excuse me. As we spew forth the news on what's happening both here in Oregon, across America, and around the world. Come back again next time for more news and information like Wisconsin, half of state voters back legalizing marijuana use. AMA, the American Medical Association, continues opposition to marijuana legalization, but softens language, saying that they should quit arresting people, flinging them into jail, and sometimes killing them, which is certainly a whole lot less healthy for people than cannabis, aka marijuana. So remember, folks, marijuana prohibition has killed more people, including kids, than marijuana itself. And so that reason, if nothing else, we should stop doing this. The only way to do it, again, is for you out there to register, vote, and get everybody you know to do so also. And then get them to do the same, and the same, and the same. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks again to our CCTV resources, particularly producer PK. And we'll, again, remember, tune in, check our website, Mercy-TV. It's mercycenters.org/TV. There it has all the schedules of when it's coming on Channel 23, all the shows, along with former episodes stashed up on YouTube and live stream. So you have no excuse. We'll either see you here or later on Mercy TV. Thanks. That's all we have time for now.
Thank you. You want to say anything before I turn it off, Glenn?
Yes, good night.
Good night. God bless you all, every single one of you.